Hello, I'm Young Bae, the curator of Fi Immersion YouTube channel, and we're at Sanctus Audio today with Mr. Walt Zerbe, the director of global business at Perlisten. We're here to talk about the company story and their lineup. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Oh, yes. Wouldn't miss it. Actually, it's my first time.
Really? In Korea?
Yeah, I love it.
The weather?
It's about the same.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, Wisconsin and over here.
So
Yeah.
I feel very comfortable here.
Okay, excellent. Perlisten is known for a very engineering-forward approach. And what problem were you trying to solve when the company started?
So the company started in 2016, and the first product came out in 2020, and that was the S7T. And that was so. During 2016 to 2020, that's when it was decided what was Perlisten going to be, what was Perlisten going to be about. And there's kind of three main tenets: super low distortion, a lot of high dynamics, and a lot of output. And with those three dynamics, they decided, okay, great, how do we get there? So the DPC, which is that waveguide that has three tweeters in it, was the first thing that Perlisten developed. That took a year and a half to model. And that was what the company was kind of built around, sound and philosophy-wise. So everybody was like, really? You're going to introduce, like the world needs another speaker, because there's a jillion speakers. And we decided, yeah, but we're going to do ours based on science and engineering. And one of the main problems that we wanted to solve was getting really good sound to people. So one of the things we needed to do, which this DPC and the rest of the design does, it gets rid of the points of first reflection from the floor and from the ceiling, which ends up being late arrival to your ear. So your brain's like, I'm getting direct sound, but I'm getting indirect sound, and it just doesn't sound quite right. So that was one of the first things that we did. So the only other thing I want to point out to that is 2016 to now is a short amount of time. And this company's gone from nothing to a lot. And people are like, well, what's the deal with that? So there were 6 people, but between the 6, that's 185 years worth of experience. So they have been doing speakers for quite a long time and decided, let's do our own.
You talk about perceptual listening experience. What does that mean in practical design terms?
Basically, the 3 things I said before: low distortion, good on-axis and off-axis sound. So it isn't the type of speaker where if I move over here, I've just lost the image. And somebody sitting next to me can have the same experience that I'm having. So and basically, as far as perceptual goes, our goal is to just try to faithfully reproduce what the artist did when they created the music. And that's what we're trying to do.
If you had to describe the Perlisten sound in 2 words, what would they be?
Dynamic and neutral.
What's the one design principle you refuse to compromise on, even if it makes the product harder to build or sell?
Everything is created from the ground up. So we do our own finite element analysis. We create our own drivers, crossovers, cabinets. We have control and build everything. So we don't source anything from any other. We don't source drivers from anybody. And each speaker is specifically designed for the model that it's going into. So our R8 sub, which has one 8-inch driver, is a completely different driver than the D8, which has 8 8-inch drivers in it. So we bespoke make everything to fit the job of the speaker that we are designing. And that is what we refuse to compromise on.
What's the most common misconception people have about Perlisten before they hear your speakers?
Most people that I've run into haven't heard the brand. They might have read some things online and then they're like, really, can it be that much different? And then once they sit down, they realize it's different. And I think one of the reasons why they realize it's different is because distortion is so low. People aren't used to hearing speakers and subwoofers with such low distortion and soundstage, not just width, but depth. And they kind of sit and they're like, I've never really experienced anything like this before. So I don't know if anyone that's come in with a pre-misconception of it's going to be this way. They're just surprised.
Why split the lineup into S series, R series, and now A series? What is each series for?
So we started out with the S series. We wanted to make our statement like, this is the best speaker we know how to design at the time that we released that speaker. So we wanted to start at the top, and that would be the S series. The S series has tech stream drivers for the woofers, which is a woven carbon. There are some people that claim to have tech stream, but they're painted. The design's painted on there. So these are actual tech stream. The outside tweeters are also tech stream, and then the middle tweeter is beryllium. So the S series is the most articulate and dynamic in our line. And it's also the most expensive. So the R series is truly a trickle down from the S series, which is less expensive, but it uses completely different material. So the woofers are a hybrid pulp woofer, which uses long grain wool and bamboo. So it's basically like a paper driver. And the tweeters use Teeter-on. So it's more relaxed and a little less analytical and slightly less dynamic than the S series. Then the A series we came out with just to have kind of an entry-level product so people could get a taste of what Perlisten does. It does not have the DPC in it. So the S series and the R series have the DPC. The A series does not. So we lose a little bit of that. We still have good control over horizontal and vertical, but it's different than what the DPC does. And there's a whole bunch of differences in cabinets too. Like all the Perlisten R and S series are all made out of high density fiber or HDF. And the A series is made out of MDF. So there's a general quality down for the A, but some say we may have built it a little bit too good.
What parts of the Perlisten DNA must remain consistent across all series?
Going back to the ground up design for every model, that has to happen. Secondly, timbre needs to be the same across all models in the same line. So I don't know if a lot of people, maybe some of your listeners probably know what timbre is. Some people are confused with what timbre is. I have a really easy way of explaining what timbre is. If you have a saxophone and a flute and piano and they all play the same note, they sound completely different. But it's the timbre that makes them sound different, even though they're playing the same note. And when that's important is if you're doing multiple speakers, let's say you're doing an immersive audio setup, if the speakers don't have the same timbre, as something moves from here to here to here, it's going to sound different. And that will, you will lose the immersion, and you'll lose the, what we call the sensation of disbelief. And so it's really important. So the S series all sound alike, the R series all sound alike, and the A series all sound alike. So that's very important for us. Oh, I should point out, Perlisten's other design philosophy is every speaker in the line has the same frequency response. It's just a matter of how loud does it go. So our subwoofers in the R series have the same sound, it's just how much do they put out. So design philosophy is exactly the same in all models. So from the S4B, which only has 4 drivers in it, to the S7T or the black edition, which is behind me, same exact frequency response, just different output capability. That's different for a speaker company.
How do you manage to do that?
Science and engineering.
Where do you allow the series to diverge?
So we have performance targets and we have price targets. And then we design to the maximum for each one of those things. So cabinets are exactly the same between S series and R series. So crossovers and drivers are different to help with cost to maximize performance for that particular series. A series, because of where we needed to price that, cabinets start to differ a bit. So those are the MDF instead of the HDF. But again, it's still looked at as a holistic system. And then of course we have all the end wall products. So those are all solid aluminum cabinets and are designed for each particular model as well.
If a viewer has a mid-level system, what's the best way to choose between entry into SR versus a top of A series?
Budget, number one. So look at your total budget. And I would personally, I've always lived by the mantra of spend most of your money on the speakers. I mean, amplifiers make a difference. Everything in the chain makes a difference, but you're going to notice the most difference between speakers than you are between amplifiers, usually. So A, it's the budget decision, and then B, it's the personal taste decision. Again, S is more analytical, R is a bit more relaxed, A is a lot more relaxed. So listen to which ones you think you like, but then also output. Like if you are someone that really wants to let it go, then you should be looking at the S series. And room size, depending on how big your room is. So it's a whole equation.
If the room is small, then you
can get away with small. You can get away with a pair of bookshelves or monitors. Always recommend adding subwoofers to any system. Even with these, the S7T or the Black Edition, they go down well below 20 hertz. But these speakers are in the right position to make an image. They're not in the right position to make bass. So you put the subs in the right place to make the bass, and then together they work holistically.
So how many subs do you recommend then?
In stereo, at least one, but the more subs the better. So 2 subs would be the best. Because with 2 subs, you can then start to cancel room modes. So if you place them in the right places, you can make sure that you have even bass response where you're seated and or across multiple seats. So you need more than 1 sub to do that. 1 sub is good for 1 seat in 1 spot, but 2 subs is always better. And usually run in mono, not necessarily stereo.
Where do you put it? In the center or?
Oh no, you generally put it at the quarter points of your wall. So if this is my wall, let's say this is my front wall, I put it 1 here and 1 here. But I might need to put 1 on the side, depending on my modes, or in the back. There's this thing called RP22. I don't know if you're familiar with that. That's the immersive audio recommended design. And I will give you a QR code that anybody can get that for free. There's a whole section in the back of that about subwoofer placement that was done by Todd Welty from Harman International, who just studied how bass works in rooms. And it shows you how all the different subwoofer placements are and what they do. So we'll give that as a resource for you to have on the video.